Down with capitalism, down. Forward the people's victory on the 4th of November, forward. Happy birthday, SACP, happy birthday. Mapaila. Thank you very much, Program Director, Comrade Joyce, and Comrade Lala. You know, this morning when I woke up and on my way here, I had a song that just came in my mind, and I sang it several times, including in the car on my way here. I remembered, and I hope people can get someone to sing it. My voice is not that good. It was about a memory I had this morning of the great combatant of the People's Glorious Liberation Army, Umkhonto weSizwe, the young Comrade Solomon Mapaila. Now this song was about how he sang asking his mother, Mama, where did Soli get the scorpion? That young man, that young leader, that young comrade, that young communist who was hanged by the public regime on the 6th of April, the day they colonized our country in 1652. They continued to inflict pain on us. But that young man, who today we must not forget about, when he went to the gallows, he was very conscious, very clear. And he said to his mother, as part of his last words, just few sentences, and I want to paraphrase him. He said, Mama, tell my people that I love them, and that they must continue the struggle, that my blood will nourish the tree that will bear the fruits of freedom. That's Solomon Mapaila. I remember he would say something about, a little bit about some of our leaders. But Program Director, thank you very much for giving me this time. I know it's getting a bit late, and our team was worried that I'll keep you too long. But I felt it was important that while we're having a celebration, we must also allow our partners and our guests. And I'm glad that they've all given our messages, their messages, and we want to really thank you from the bottom of our hearts. I'll acknowledge you individually. Let me first acknowledge the leadership of our Central Committee, our officials present here, Comrade Joyce Muruka, our National Treasurer, Comrade Madala Masuku, our President General Secretary, and officials who have expressed their apologies. Members of our Central Committee, in their majority, they are here. This manifesto we're going to share with you today was approved by the full component of the Central Committee, which was convened as a special Central Committee after the Special Polling Bureau also processed the manifesto. On Thursday, just around 1:45 in the morning, we got the full final adoption of every single point in our manifesto by an overwhelming members of the Central Committee. So today we hear from the Sunday world that the leadership of the SACP is not part of this process. That's absolute lies. It's fake stories. It's pathetic. It's disappointing. We'll plead with the media. Tell the truth. To tell the truth, as Bertolt Brecht once said, it's revolutionary. Don't lie. I will then obviously request later on our provinces, our provincial leaders, particularly provincial secretaries and chairpersons present here, and members of our Central Committee to join me in front as I hand over our people their manifesto. Let me therefore acknowledge our provincial secretaries and chairpersons that are here, and I realize that in the acknowledgement of others, Comrade Begeso was missed. He's here as our provincial secretary from the Free State. I see that this mic is traveling. Comrade Begeso is here, wasn't acknowledged. Oh, he was, ultimately. Oh, sorry. Because initially I thought that they missed him. And they could have acknowledged Comrade Debo, the Deputy Provincial Secretary, was also here. I equally acknowledge the leadership of our Young Communist League, led by Comrade Jan Labani, who gave us a message here, and members of the National Committee present here. Comrade Jan is a special recipient of our Red October Acknowledgement Award for his hard work in the People's Red Caravan. He is an agriculturalist by training. He's an academic. So sometimes he gets overly involved in the process of the People's Red Caravan. Comrade Zola and Mpo, the General Secretaries of NEAU and NUM, and Comrade Mike Shingange, the Deputy President of COSATU, think as shy. This man, I stopped him after he worked 29 hours non-stop on a PRC site. It was not acceptable. When we launched it, that was Muhlave. When we launched it, when we handed over the project, it was not in the wall. I had to go and take him from the PRC site to force him to go and sleep, because he wanted to finish the deadlines, overseeing the projects directly by himself, and want to appreciate his effort. And of course, the leadership of our team in the PRC, including Comrade Tebo Mapaila from our Polling Bureau, who is responsible for processes that deals with community development, also working with Comrade PJ Nguni in this regard. These are members that sometimes don't report to the HQ, they report to the sites as their workplaces. The workplaces. Recently, for instance, Comrade PJ was constructing a house, Comrade in Gladstone, of an old lady who was living in a terrible space. When we had a PRC there, we left him there to construct the house and said the mandate is to come back to Johannesburg once we finish the house. The house is finished for the old lady. We appreciate it. Of course, our leadership of our alliance, Comrade Oba from Sango, the leadership of the province here, as well as members of the NEC delegated to be here on our anniversary and our manifesto launch. We appreciate your presence. Comrade Mike, you are not delegated, but we acknowledge your presence. You are also a direct member of our central committee in your own right. We acknowledge the leadership of Nehau, led by President Nyameka Makanda, and the Deputy President, Comrade Linda. They are with their General Secretary, Comrade Zola Sapeta. He's a member of our Central Committee in his own right, Comrade Zola. I don't know why he's seated. But something special has to be said about this trade union. Now, the working class of this country and of the world
our members
will never forget you, will always etch you in their hearts. We have never abandoned the class struggle and class struggle as a union. The unionists all over the world can never be confused by their class interests. The union stands for the working class, for the workers, the leading detachment of the working class. Anything contrary to that is not a red union, it's not a revolutionary union, it's a claimant. And therefore we appreciate your presence here. Let me greet the ambassadors that we acknowledge here, starting with the newly appointed ambassador of Vietnam, who just arrived just a few weeks ago. You are most welcome. We still have to have our proper discussion. Vietnam taught us early how to multiply the front line against imperialism. When Vietnam, a South country, defeated the American imperialists and became victorious. Today, Iran has occupied the front line of the South countries to defend their country, and they fought battles against the bully American empire, and they become victorious. Comrade Dylan, we appreciate your presence on behalf of the Iranian members. We appreciate you again, Comrade Bassam, your message and your presence here on behalf of the heroic Palestinian people. Their struggle is ours. The development in Palestine has exposed the immorality of capitalism, the immorality of imperialist forces led by the American government and its partners, the Zionist regime of Israel. We appreciate and we extend our continued solidarity with the heroic people of Palestine. We equally appreciate the presence of the ambassador of Cuba, Comrade Fakir, who grew up here in South Africa most of his years. His father was an ambassador here for almost 2 terms. Yes, he spent a lot of time here in South Africa. And indeed, we'll say some few words about that great hero of our people, Fidel. Thank you for making time and also for sharing with us the great life of Fidel Castro. Let me acknowledge, comrades, our religious leaders present here, starting with Archbishop Zita from National Council of Churches of South Africa, who also spoke to us. They are our partners. There are other religious leaders present here. We appreciate. I just want to say to you that this morning on his way here, the Archbishop had a tire burst. And he decided to leave the car to proceed to this venue in order to keep time, as mandated by his president. And he shows me the pictures of the tire burst, and I said, "Where is the car?" He said, "No, I've called people to go and check it." I said, "But Archbishop, how can you leave the site of the car?" He said, "No, I could not disrupt my journey to come here. Like Jesus, who, when he did not have mobility to continue his journey to Jerusalem, he decided to take a donkey to proceed with the journey." Siyabonga Archbishop, sibonga futhi namazwi. Indeed, let me acknowledge our traditional leaders. Princess Lamo, Rachel, what a message you gave us on behalf of Contralesa. You reminded us what we are, who we are, why we are here, and why we continue the struggle. You are accompanied by Hoshi Sefoko, Ralemo. President of Contralesa, the General Secretary for Logomela Mona. We really appreciate. And all our traditional leaders present here. And I must say, it has been a special pleasure for us in the Communist Party to reconnect properly with our traditional leadership and with our own roots as South Africans. And when we are implementing the People's Red Caravan, we have been received by our traditional leaders. Our first site in the Northwest was given to us by Hoshi Ilan, the Deputy President of Contralesa, who said, here is a different area, quite difficult. Here is a site. The traditional leaders don't give us problems to use the land for the benefit of the people that they lead. They are not like in the urban areas where you take years to get a piece of land. So that's why the People's Red Caravan has gone to 6 provinces, but largely in the rural areas. But it's not only a rural problem. It must also go to the urban areas. It will arrive in all parts of our country, all our communities. So much appreciated, Princess Rachel Blambo, as well as Coach Spoka, for your presence here today. Again, comrades, let me appreciate also, although he came here to speak on behalf of Village Agricultural Cooperative, or sometimes we characterize it as community development cooperatives, because our cooperatives are not only about agriculture, they are about the broadest economy in our communities. Umadiba, from Tegezwe, Omkhulu, Bajongintaba, Inkosi yakhuliswa uNtatu Nelson Mandela. Siyabulela, hlekazi wami, usibulisele ekhaya Omkhulu. It was a special pleasure for the Communist Party to go to Tegezwe and to put up right there where President Nelson Mandela grew up, our People's Red Caravan. Comrade Nata, that was historic, that was memorable. and the testimony has now been given by a rep of the Royal House on behalf of that community, the interventions that have been made. We really appreciate, although you came in that particular capacity, but we know you are also from the Royal House. Much appreciated. Again, comrades, our partners in the political parties, I want to really appreciate your presence here and the messages that you have given to us. The United African Transformation General Secretary, Comrade Babani Misal. We had a wonderful discussion with the leadership of the United African Transformation, led by our president. Our reconnection with all the left forces in the country has equally opened our eyes as the SACP. For instance, your perspective on the land question, even on how we can take up this question further, both legally and otherwise, was very important for us. And it gave us an avenue we have never initially looked into. We as communists believe that the land is the fundamental form of property relations in society. In other words, the land determines whether you are rich or poor. That is its ownership. That is why the fight for the return of the land in our country is a non-negotiable issue. It's a must, it must happen. We will fight for it. So we really appreciate your presence and your entire delegation and the message that you have given to us. We still have time to finalize our discussions. I should say at this particular moment that our comrades, as we finalize nominations for councillors, we have summarized this, Comrade Babani. We have decided to register wall to wall as a South African Communist Party, that is across the country. But equally we have said, this is not a pure SACP thing. It's a left thing. It's a left project. All the forces that we've been working with, we have said, if there's no SACP candidate or if there's a better candidate from one of our left forces, we'll choose them to be the candidate we support. So the discussion will continue in that context. Again, let me recognize and greet President Leslie of the African United Congress. What a much like man. In everything, President, you inspire us all the time. We had several meetings with your delegation from last year. You don't lose hope. The confidence, the optimism has equally inspired us. We have been happy to have worked with you and your General Secretary, Madgo Vungema, who has been one of the trusting members who delegated to coordinate with us our efforts for our several bilaterals, including the visits to the Nazareth Church, Ushel, the Bandli. That was a very special moment too. And I must indicate that the delegation that visited the church have then decided that we will have a special people's-led caravan for the church. Because, Comrade President, in this case, because we are the General Secretary in the church, we took a decision differently. Because our task is that if we go to any community, we should not see a problem more than once. That's the spirit of the People's Red Caravan. All communists. That's why our councillors, you will not be allowed to pass a pothole more than once and do nothing about it. That is the spirit of our interventions everywhere we've gone. So we want to appreciate the reception you gave us. Ebandle, Washem. I must say, comrade, one of the things that has hemorrhaged or has destroyed or injured the spirit and the dignity of the African people has been how we've allowed colonialism to continue to colonize our mind, to undermine our own institutions, to undermine us. So much that even the Libanda, like Babu Isaiah, Prophet Mkuu, will undermine as if Ibanda Labantu, Umati Ibanda Labanta Bangafundana. Bethathelwa phansi ngoba lelandela amasiko abantu bakithi futhi likhonza uNkulunkulu. We are right there. All our thoughts, those who had subjective views, were completely changed by the dignity, the egalitarianism in the church, the equality in the church, the respect for women in the church. This is not what we get outside, President. Our delegation was completely impressed. They were shocked. We arrived in the morning, we left midnight. We could not just leave. We had too much to do and too much to observe. And when we finally left, we were all satisfied. And we want to say, you have restored our Africanism, our humanity. Keep it up. And usibulisele umlayeza kuba mshembe ukuthi siyabonga. Liqhubeke nephambili. Nibambe kanjalo. That visit was very special to us, comrade, we must say. And I must indicate to you as well, it was not about vote, the visit to the church. It was not about vote. We are reconnecting with ourselves, rebuilding our communities, and bringing back the mission of the liberation struggle. That's the mission of our engagements with our communities across the board. Indeed, comrades, I must acknowledge our stalwarts, present here led by Comrade Trevor Fowler. He is with Comrade Shitlangoma Bokmabaso. I've not seen Comrade Caesar Njikela. The three of them are the leading team of our national selection team of our councillor candidates. They are through the eye of the needle. These stalwarts have been amazing for us. Comrade Trevor Fowler, our former provincial secretary and chairperson here in Gauteng, has been a member of the ANC for 56 years and a member of the SACP for 55 years. He serves in our central committee. He calls me and says, what is this that I have to choose? How do I choose my own history? We had some good discussion with you. As typical, I had said, Comrade Trevor, you have been more known for having done more work on the mandate of the African National Congress. You chose to remain and to lead our selection process and to train our comrades on election. He's a specialist in this work. Comrade Trevor, we really appreciate it. And the team that you work with. And indeed, other scholars that are present here, amongst them J.C. Chauke and others, the leadership of the Unemployed People's Assembly, Comrade Lukman Maseko, we have had several discussions equally about the plight of the working class, the unemployed. In the communist language, we call them the army of the unemployed. That is, we call them the unemployed workers, because they have the ability to work, but they are the product of capitalism, that in order to maximize profit, it creates unemployment. So the crisis we face in South Africa of unemployment is a generated crisis of capitalism, the conscious crisis. Out of this crisis, capitalism makes more profit. So the most profitable country in the world today is South Africa for capitalism. You just check the statistics of the rate of unemployment. You know where to invest and where to go and make more money. So we appreciate your presence here and the entire leadership of the Unemployed People's Organization. We also want to hold the pose. Sinifuna epalweni. Njengoba sifuna abafundisi epalweni. Archbishop Zita. Sifuna abafazi epalweni. Yes. The party in this process must not be sectarian. It must be embracing. Of course, comrades, I recognize two members here representing few unions in their own rights. The General Secretary of NEAO, Comrade Zola Sapeta, and the General Secretary of the NUM, Comrade Popa Kedi. These two are members of our central committee by their presence here. So we appreciate your presence, but we know you've got other responsibilities in other organizations. Comrade Nishan Bolton from the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, I must appreciate how you keep the memory of Comrade Ahmed Kathrada and many of our leaders who are now not being celebrated by our revolutionary movement. The Ahmed Kathrada Foundation is doing a marvelous job to continue to build nationalism in South Africa and to honor those who contributed immensely to the liberation of our country. And Comrade Nishan has been a wonderful leader in this regard, leading the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation. I know they said you are seated at the back. You were just arriving. You don't want to be acknowledged, but your presence is so big that we can't ignore your presence, Comrade Nishan. We appreciate your presence here. All our party councillor candidates, I don't know how many of you are here who are already nominated. Those who are present here, can you stand up and we see you? The candidates that are already nominated. Stand up. We really want to thank you for your presence here. Today, we are celebrating our 105th anniversary since the founding of the SACP in Cape Town on the 30th of July to the 1st of August 1921. This became the first and the largest Marxist-Leninist party on the African continent. We celebrate this anniversary by launching our 2026 Local Government Elections Manifesto, declaring therefore an independent path in electoral politics for the South African Communist Party. This therefore, comrades, is not simply an anniversary for celebration. It's equally a moment of remembrance, but also a political determination of a new era in our class struggle. We celebrate 105 years of unbroken struggle for people's power, for socialism, and for national liberation. But also 105 years of communist organization and frontline sacrifices in the liberation trenches. And we do so by recommitting ourselves to the working class struggles that gave birth to our party. These struggles continue to define our purpose today. The mother of all struggles, which is the struggle to end all forms of human exploitation, as well as oppression, inequality, and the struggle to transfer wealth, both economic and social power, to the people, so that they can build a prosperous, democratic, non-racial, as well as socialist South Africa. And that struggle, comrades, we call it socialism. Socialism. Umkhankaso obuyisela umnotho ebantwini, umhlaba ebantwini. Anyone who opposes this and calls himself a revolutionary is a novice in politics. When on the basis of the reactionary apartheid regime and many colonial regimes that were anti-communist took a posture to be anti-communist and to degrade the concept of communism, to lie about it. Today, the presence of religious leaders and the traditional leaders in our midst has destroyed this myth that communists are anti-religion, communists are anti-traditional leaders. There's nothing like that. We've worked side by side in our own struggle for national liberation. The Communist Party from its early years pioneered a united working class and a united people, humanity. We became the first non-racial organization on the African continent. But it's also important to say we contributed immensely in building the progressive trade union movement in this country. After Clement Gadali of the ICU developed a bourgeois tendency and became anti-communist and started paging communists. So the Communist Party took a decision to build progressive trade unions in our country. Today, there's hardly a sector in the country of our trade unions that has no base from those that were established by the South African Communist Party. So we pioneered progressive trade unionism in this country. We also became an important force in building the national liberation movement. And we said, in building this national liberation movement, we not only want independent fighting national liberation organization, we wanted to build an alliance. The concept of the revolutionary alliance in this country was initiated by the South African Communist Party. Yes, the alliance as we know it today is initiated by us. We initiated it on the basis of clarifying the struggle of the people of South Africa. That first, we were fighting against British imperialism, British colonialism, British dominion of our country, and therefore the British control of our economy. And in that struggle, we were fighting alongside all African people for the national liberation against national oppression, racial oppression by a minority colonial and later apartheid regime. This became what we characterize as the national struggle, the national question. So we wanted to resolve the return of the land. That is the anti-colonial struggle, anti-imperialist struggle, and the end of racial oppression by a white minority on the black majority and the African majority in particular. In the same breath, we articulated the continuous struggle that affects people as a class on the basis of their relation to the means of production. In other words, how you are defined in relation to how you make a living. Whether you make a living by working for somebody or by working for yourself. We clarified this question as the South African Communist Party ideologically. And we said, in this regard, the principal problem we have is capitalist exploitation of our people, of labor, of our economy, of our resources. And therefore, to deal with the national question, the removal of racist regime, colonial and apartheid regime, without dealing with the removal for their control of our economy, you will not fulfill the mission of the revolution. We further said, we want equally to liberate all human beings, men and women, black and white. In our context, we also we refer mainly to black and white. The black referred to the African people, the Indian people, the colored people. We characterize all of this as black people. Amongst them, we said, women are the most oppressed. They are oppressed by a system of unequal power relations between men and women we call patriarchy. This is the system that creates gender inequality. This system is un-African for that matter. So we clarified this question and therefore said, our struggle is intertwined. The National Liberation Agenda will therefore seek to resolve the national oppression of the African people and black people in general, but African people in particular. We have to resolve capitalist domination of our economy and therefore relieve the working class from the yoke of exploitation by imperialism, which is the highest stage of capitalism. And equally, liberate women from patriarchal oppression that were entrenched even by the capitalist system. And further we said, to achieve this, we have to have an anti-imperialist agenda and struggle. That's the basis in which we developed the Black Republic thesis. We were the first organization to call for black majority rule in this country as communists. Even the liberation movement at the time was not calling for the black majority rule, was calling for some social rights, some liberties of a section of the African people. We called for black majority rule, for full extension of democracy and universal suffrage in our country. This was the mission and remains the mission of South African Communist Party. On this basis, we were able to produce the Alliance. And its program we called the program to resolve all these integrated issues I've raised. We called it the National Democratic Revolution. This is a program that Comrade Princess Lam was speaking about. This is a program that unites us and shows us the way. We can say from this podium, we feel that this program has been betrayed. And we have to continue the program. The program remains relevant because the mission is not yet completed. So we therefore have to continue this mission. We must indicate, comrades, that in pursuit of this, at the core of our struggle was therefore the return of the land. Today, 3 decades into democracy, majority of our land still remains in the hands of the minority, still remains under capitalist rule. We cannot be an independent country without ownership of our land. This matter must be resolved, and it is urgent for all political role players in this country. It's the basis of our relationship with many other organizations that we work with. Therefore, comrades, on this day that we are launching our manifesto and celebrating our 105th anniversary, we also remember the period that the SACP has traversed. In 1950, when the apartheid regime feared us, they banned the South African Communist Party in April 1950. We were the first organization to be banned by the apartheid regime in this country. There was a reason for that. We spoke truth to power. We showed the people where power lies. Even today, we've woken up from our slumber to direct the future of our country where the problem is, where the power is. Power lies in socialism, not in capitalism. Capitalism has no moral obligation, no moral capacity to transform our society. It has shown all over the years its moral incapacity to make any meaningful contribution to end poverty in societies. Today, even in the biggest capitals of the world, whether it's London, New York, Paris, or anywhere, Belgium and others, those countries, you still find poor people who sleep under bridges. It is Fidel Castro who, when he was addressing the non-alignment movement, Comrade Ambassador, who said that of those who were sleeping under the bridges all over the capitals of the so-called developed world, and he said, none of them is Cuban. Today, in the midst of massive resources in the world, creation of even trillionaires, not just billionaires, trillionaires, dollar trillionaires, people with more money than the continent of Africa, for instance, individuals. They can't end poverty because capitalism has no moral obligation to the well-being of humanity, of a human being. But the country that has eliminated abject poverty in the world today and met already the UN development goals is the People's Republic of China, a socialist country. The bourgeoisie, even in this country, do not want to accept that China is socialist because they just can't accept the success of socialism. But that's the reality, whether they like it or not. China is led by the Communist Party, clear about its agenda. Its development, the development of China, that the world are now learning. That's what we should have here. China is one of the leading forces in the development of productive forces. In other words, in the development of machines that create machines that produces the economy, or contributing the productive resources in the economy. In other words, they have advanced capacity for development. Today, in these countries like China, for instance, the level of the development of productive forces, that is the ability to produce. If you like, in this country, we've got these different stores, chain stores, even food stores. What do you call them in their language?
Franchise.
They call them what, Sabine?
Franchise.
Franchise. Today, the capacity of China is such that they can even franchise a city. Can come and build a city. They showed us during COVID when they built multiple hospitals in record time and prevented death of millions when millions were dying in the United States, the so-called developed country. We have traversed this period, comrades, and we appreciate in this regard also the contribution of all communist countries in the development of humanity. The Communist Party, after it was banned in 1950, it did not surrender. And in anticipation of the banning order, the Communist Party dissolved itself. This is very important. We never gave the apartheid regime the dignity to ban us. We dissolved ourselves from the Communist Party of South Africa and we created a 3-person team led by General Secretary Moses Kotane and Walter Sisulu, as well as Comrade Michael Hemming. Now, let me also say something about Michael Hemming. This is the man that summarized the 10th clause of the Freedom Charter. Michael Hemming. That's why when the apartheid regime attacked the Freedom Charter as a communist organization, they did not only attack its content, because the content was progressive and remains progressive. We say a lot about it here, but I've done some of the aspects because of time. But the most important thing is we contributed immensely in the liberation agenda and struggle in this country as a Communist Party. This committee, 3-person committee, was mandated to take all decisions in the best interest of the working class and the Communist Party, and to task all reliable comrades to reorganize underground. Then the party reconstituted under this leadership, reconstituted itself underground in 1953 as the South African Communist Party, the SACP. This time, membership was by invitation. And it were banned because we're a mass organization. In the 40s, we were stronger than even the African National Congress, by the way, the Communist Party. That's why we produced sharp cadres like Dorota Mani, who have named our cooperative agency to build cooperatives in our communities in the People's Red Caravan. They started doing that across the country. Dorota Mani was a communist. Not only her, many others that are unsung heroines of the Communist Party. Together, therefore, after the reconstitution, we launched, jointly with the ANC, Umkhonto weSizwe. As you know, we trained people militarily before the African National Congress. So this is history, this is the truth. So we launched Umkhonto weSizwe together as our joint army. But we allowed it to be led by the African National Congress as a broad movement. And we gave our best cadres to Umkhonto weSizwe. Lilith Farm in Johannesburg, Pretoria. the underground headquarters of the Communist Party. That's where our leaders were arrested. All the Rivonia trialists, without exception, were members of our party. All members of the Rivonia trial, without exception, were members of our party. We give homage to their sacrifices. They suffered like all others after we launched Umkhonto weSizwe, went underground, went into exile. Our members were imprisoned, some were killed, but the party remained unbroken. It produced great leaders of our liberation struggle and liberation movement across the board. Trade unionists, progressive nationalists, but all communists. Amongst them, just to mention very few, the great Moses Kotane, who I had the great pleasure to visit him recently, his gravesite in Moscow, together with that of J.B. Marx, as well as another one of our General Secretary, David Ivan Jones, who's less celebrated. I had the pleasure to go and lay with just recently in May in Moscow. J.B. Marx, Yusuf Dadu, Joe Slow, Moses Mabida, John Yohuana Galilei, Ahmed Katrada, Govind Beki, Josie Palmer, if you like, Josie Palmer, the first woman cadre of the Communist Party, who joined when we were established prior through the International Socialist League before the 1921 formation of the Communist Party of South Africa. Dan Truman, our national chairman, Mama Evanit Mbeki. In the new era of the establishment of the Communist Party, the first woman member of our Communist Party African, who had a big responsibility in the party. We had such great cadres like Ruth First, Lillian Ngoyi. Ruth First was martyred in Mozambique, killed by a parcel bomb at the Edward Mundani University in Maputo by the apartheid criminals. And of course, many others. The young Solomon Mahlangu was a young communist. We must celebrate him as a young communist. And this was said to us by his family because they know him. And they said, don't leave to celebrate the memory of this martyr of our national liberation struggle, who was a young communist. And of course, we produced for our movement as a whole the martyr of our collective struggle, the symbol of our centuries of collective pain of our people, the martyr of our struggle, Martin Temisile, Christopher Hardy, the commander of the glorious Chief of Staff of Umkhonto weSizwe, whose cowardly assassination by the right-wing forces finally gave us the April 27 voting day in South Africa of 1994. A day that our people were now allowed, after centuries of struggle, to vote for the government of their choice. This is the caliber of the party that is celebrating this 105 years today. A party that never abandoned the working class. A party that took the frontline trenches in the national liberation struggle. A party that still carries the responsibility to organize the working class as a class for itself not as a class for others. We want to say, as we launch this, our manifesto on the Women's Month, and celebrate great women of our movement, like Lilian Ngoyi, who became the first NEC member of the African National Congress, but a woman communist in her own right. We celebrate our women in South Africa today who carry the heaviest burden when there is no water at home, when food runs short, when the streets are dark and unsafe, and when care work is treated as invisible. Our women, the women of South Africa, carry this burden. They continue to face patriarchal oppression under capitalist South Africa. Only a communist South Africa will finally, the struggle must continue to liberate them from this triple oppression, more than triple oppression even. They suffer gender-based violence and femicide, abuse, all sorts of things. This manifesto is also dedicated to them. We launch it on their month that our revolution pays tribute to them. At the same time, we want to say to our comrades, we want women councillors too. Don't leave them out. They must represent themselves as a sector of society, an important sector for that matter. But comrades, we are also marking the centenary of Comrade Fidel Castro. Comrade Ambassador, Comrade Fakir, you have said much, but I want to say a few words about Fidel. Firstly, to send a message to Cuba, to First Secretary, Comrade Miguel, and all our comrades in the communist part of Cuba, our unwavering solidarity with the Cuban Revolution. And to send my apology that I could not make it to this meeting a few days ago to celebrate the centenary of Fidel in person because of these challenges that we are having now in our revolution, and particularly the launch of this manifesto this weekend. I had a Politburo and a Central Committee that I could not abandon in the context of these challenges that we face. But we sent our dear comrades, Ben Martins, Angola, can you stand up? And President Mapaila, can you stand up? Thank you. And others who joined you for representing us. Cuba needs us the most today. And that's why I really felt I needed to be in Cuba to express my direct solidarity with the Cuban Revolution. But I do know the comrades have done well. They've represented us. They just arrived yesterday, and today they are here. Thank you very much, Comrade Ben and Comrade President and the entire delegation that you will be. But Fidel spent his entire life for the liberation of the Cuban people. He defeated and removed the dictator Batista in Cuba. He led the construction of socialism and the worldwide struggle against colonialism and imperialism, racism and capitalist exploitation. We remember the Cuban internationalists who sacrificed their lives for the freedom of the African continent and many other countries of the South, for countries in Latin America. But in Africa especially, we remember the Cuban Revolution especially through Operation Carlota in Angola. This operation on internationalism remains unmatched today. over 35,000 Cuban soldiers fought in Angola, alongside their own comrades of the People's Armed Forces of the Liberation of Angola, the FAPLA forces, and the SWAPLA forces of Namibia, in the southeastern part of Angola. And the LK combatants continue to hold the front, in the northern front. MK fought hard in Angola. Therefore, Operation Carlota, which Fidel specifically named Operation Carlota, was named after an African woman slave who had led a slave revolt against the Spanish colonizers in Cuba. After the suppression of the revolt, she was captured together with her comrades and dismembered as a punishment by horses. Today she has a monument in Cuba, together with her comrades. But her final victory against Spanish colonialism was led by the Cuban international forces that defended the independence of Angola. In that epic victory at Quitopana Valley in Angola, the apartheid forces, together with their counterparts in UNITA, they were dealt a major blow. And because of the victory of Quitopana Valley, the independence of Namibia became realizable. So was the release of President Nelson Mandela, as well as the democratic process in South Africa. Therefore, Cuba has played a major role in the foundation of our 1994 democratic breakthrough. On his centenary, therefore, Fidel will demand the immediate and unconditional end of the illegal United States blockade against Cuba, that is economic blockade. We also condemn and call for an end its aggressive measures against Cuba, military threats and so forth. And we say, long live the undying spirit of Comrade Fidel. Indeed, comrades, entering our manifesto period, or the section of our manifesto, we want to start by saying, we want to go and measure ourselves by the new standards of selfless service to our people. This is a standard, we call it the Krizani standard. Krizani taught us that socialism begins with basic questions that the people face every day. He asks simple questions. Who has water? Who has food? Who has housing? Who's ill? And how to provide the solution for all of these problems. He rejected petty privileges that many leaders fought today. He became a selfless servant of the people. He led by example, even in the trenches. If you are to read these programs, his history, his leadership in the armed struggle, in the underground, his fearlessness, his frontline leadership, that's the standard that is now required of our councillors. Because Krizani led by example. In these elections, we will also dedicate this election to Comrade Krizani. We will accept the Krizani standard as our councillors. Every candidate that is here will be then judged by the Krizani standard, the standard of selfless service to the people. We are contesting local government elections, comrade, precisely amongst others because of the following. One, the working class is not properly represented in government. It has lost its voice. Therefore, we seek working class representation in the state, in the local state. We are contesting these elections, comrade, also because the municipalities in our country are collapsing. We're here, a comrade who's the president of SALGA. He can tell you that. Everyone knows. We believe we have a solution to solve some of these problems of the collapsing municipalities in our country. We want to rebuild them for their purpose. The working class equally has been too patient for too long because of unfulfilled promises. The conditions that Comrade Hani pointed out as the main problems of our country remains today as the reality of the living conditions of millions of our people. And there can be no hesitation any longer. We are not here to add just other politicians into councils. We are sending revolutionaries into councils who are going to represent the interests of the people. The council seats are not opportunities for business. The council seats are not opportunities for business or for tenders. We are here, therefore, to build people's power where we live, for the right to work, for access to clean running water, access to land, access to food, to safe communities, access to roads. Comrade Opa, to summarize this, that's our manifesto. It's not complicated. We will do these basics right. That's our pledge. We equal comrades want to call on young people of our country and comrades Maseko, Laxmi. We have also captured this question proper, particularly around the right to work. The concept of the right to work is in the Freedom Charter. The right to work is in the Freedom Charter. That is the social contract of the people of this country. That we accepted the mandate of the Freedom Charter. It's just not being implemented because we've capitulated to capital and its interest. This will have to come to an end. And therefore, our manifesto, comrades, will have to give these basic demands. Water to our communities. When we were embarking on the People's Red Caravan, almost except in Hanspan and Sogozi, Hanspan in the Northern Cape, there's enough water there. Sogozi in Mapaila, KwaZulu-Natal, we found a good well of water. We just reconnected for the people to use and to drink water with dignity and to use the water for plantation. There was no need to even put up a borehole. And the council was telling us that they need to spend 72 million for a tender to bring water to the people. We did it within a week. It didn't even cost us 20,000 rand. Yes, I drank that water, pure water, spring water. We are now working to produce their own spring water that they can sell to all others across the country. Because they've got enough natural resources in their area. So all across, we have to put boreholes. So the question of water is fundamental. And we pledge ourselves to end the water tankers. Municipalities must provide people with water and have their own water tanks if the people do not have water. They must not outsource this service. In any case, we are committing ourselves to end the entire tenderization system in local municipalities. This is the mandate of the SACP. Now, we have a serious problem in this country. Tenders are awarded and the work is not done. Councillors disappear even before, just immediately after elections. This is not the democracy that we fought for. This is also not what Chris Hani died for. Now the GNU has become a front for monopoly capital. This is shocking. And we say these comrades clearly as a Communist Party. One thing you can be assured, President Man of AUC, is that when we are in this podium as a Communist Party, when we speak, we venerate the truth. So we venerate the truth. We won't talk lies. This government, the GNU, is captured by big capital. A clique of white businessmen are now in control of our country. The government has launched a program called Bulindlela. It is nothing but a front of white minority business people that are controlling our economy. This has to come to an end. We will end this. And therefore, comrades, not only is this our manifesto demands reliable water, electricity, end of water tankering and so forth, so that we end dry temps in our communities. We've got a problem of unreliable electricity supply in our country. Now, water and electricity, these are important lifelines, but they have been privatized. The government, unashamedly, even spend and invite so-called investors in the water industry. They are abdicating basic social responsibility to the people. Want to hand over this important sector to unelected people when the majority of our people have no water across the country. The taps are closed. When we went to Gegezwe, Madiba, Safari, Iboho, Pagadiboku, the borehole almost 160 meters down because Okulu was upside. We realized that the area has had water over the years. The pumps were just locked. When our borehole splashed water out, the people started celebrating. Comrades started taking pictures about the water coming in Kongu. The following day, the councillor there in Umtata, they opened the water that they've closed for 4 years. What is this? This is unacceptable, comrades. We must deal with this thing decisively. This is criminality, it's unacceptable, and it must stop across the country. Equally, ESCOM is being unbundled, so-called. This is a term used to privatize ESCOM. We will have to stop these punitive disconnections by ESCOM and the sale and privatization of ESCOM. That is why we must call for ESCOM to still remain in public hands. This assurance has been given when they know they are lying. They've sold already the national distribution system. It has got its own independent board where we get their business model and what they are trying to do. The main body ESCOM has no control. Because that clique of white businessmen that have captured our presidents are doing as they please. This is a serious problem. Our movement doesn't listen. We have raised this question with them on several occasions. Now, our union, the NUM, and I can use this word, our union, with absolute confidence. It is the Communist Party that established the first black mine workers union in this country through a mandate of the Central Committee. the legacy of the NUM today complete a package. Because J.B. Marx, as you know him, the chairman of our party, was a teacher. The Communist Party retired him as a teacher because they found him a job as a clerk in a mine with the mandate to establish a black mine workers union. That was the time. That's the beginning of the NUM. Of course, it's relaunched now in the 80s, differently. But the NUM has taken government to court to stop the privatization of ESCO in the name of unbundling. We fully support this. Electricity is a public good, not a source of profit or private profit. We must not allow this tariff that crash the working class household, that allows our people to seek in darkness. It must remain a public entity. We will fight equally for the maintenance of roads in our townships and villages and the creation of roads. You know, I'll say something briefly about Hanspa. Not Hanspa, Blackstone. It's not Hanspa, but Blackstone. Because the people's red caravan, one of the tasks, and we were found that this thing is simple. This thing is very simple. If I think, Michelle, you are right. We have started doing this program differently, focusing on house, we are doing everything. We are arriving communities and even building roads. We found in villages, there are no roads. And we found that it's so cheap, practical, although we can't afford as a communist party. But the later that we see, we say to the community, okay, let's do arterial road, what we call arterial road. Just small roads, few roads to enter the area, the main roads for the area to function and so forth. And we found that it's so cheap. In Hanspa, we hire a grader, they do one road, two roads. Before they do the third road the following day, the entrepreneurs go to them and say, if you continue with this program, we will punish you. Stop doing this. Then the man disappears. We do this thing in Gladstone, in the Free State. Just after we've done two roads, then the government sends their own grader to come and do the roads. It's the same attitude in on water, they do it on roads. The point is, the people's red caravan appreciate the rural communities. We've started it with great roads in the villages where roads do not exist, where it is impossible to drive, because some of our comrades, one of our leaders today is burying his brother. His brother rest in peace. He said, I feel like carrying my car in the villages. The PLC builds roads in our communities. Imagine now when we are able to instruct our councils to build roads in villages, because that should be the standard. There's no way in which a councillor must navigate to go to a council meeting in an impossible road and come back home and go back the following day, and this matter is not on the council agenda. We want you to hold you to this standard, comrades. And therefore, we have said we will reject all of these things, tenderization and many other things. But we want our councillors to report regularly to our communities and to account equally to the party and also to the organizations collectively that we'll be working with. At the same time, comrades, the PRC model for the SACP, which is a model of building people's power from below to end poverty and create self-reliant communities, will become a new model of how to do things in our communities. Our National Treasurer, Comrade Joyce Murupa, tried to explain this thing. And by the way, I should have recognized Comrade Murupa. More than 15 years ago, but Nina, you are wasting too much time. Bill has been a believer in our independent stand for elections when nobody wanted it. I made sure that we are here today. They left you at home. And you said, why? I said, no, you will come. Now we are here. Welcome. This standard, comrades, is simple. Comrade Joyce was trying to explain it. The Central Committee of the SACP, the headquarters, leaves Johannesburg, its headquarters, and establishes a provisional headquarters in the area of the People's Red Caravan, in the village. We operate from there. I stay there myself, I lead this process. Madiba, Nantlaliso Bunku, Mklabe, everywhere else. I don't stay in hotels. We stay in the village where we do the PRC. In Hanspan, I was staying in the Scotter camp. Yes, comrade. That's where I was staying. In a house without electricity. When we left, we had connected that house in the Scotter camp with electricity. And we're like, these comrades, they know that they're taking the general secretary here to this house that doesn't even have electricity, can't even make coffee, just to press a kettle. So we have to say, here is a problem. We must solve the problem. So by the time we left, the old lady who had received us had electricity. This is the standard. So the Central Committee and National Leadership of the SACP goes to a village, to all the areas, and stay there for a week. Provinces must still do the same. Our districts must still do the same. This program cannot be meshed by mischievous agendas. There are those who are trying to say they will abuse and use the money in government to counter us on this program. Madiba, the program in Communist Party, we can see what I program to appreciate the living conditions of the people and resolve and have a program. The problem that we don't even have money, we don't even have a budget for the People's Red Caravan. In fact, because we didn't have budget, we didn't launch this program. Because people kept on postponing. We said, okay, let's just go and talk with the people and hear what they have and what we can have. Then we've lived on the generosity of our trade unions, of our comrades, who were happy. Comrade President Mapaila, you joined us together with Comrade Mike and others, Comrade Zola, the leadership of Nehao, in Tlogozi, for instance. And in all other provinces. Nehao has been there with us. In Mhlave, when we launched it, you were there. The leadership of Kopko, when we launched this in Tegezwe, where it was difficult for security, the leadership of Kopko came up. The president came out, the provincial leaders came out. So we go to communities with nothing. We don't need millions to go and develop our communities. We just need to go and identify the problem and resolve the problem collectively. The issue is to be there when we are resolving the problem with the people. And all other provinces that have not yet done the People's Red Caravan. The People's Red Caravan is not suspended because of election. It's the standard program of operating in our communities by the Communist Party. We have started this particular program. Of course, comrades, many have given here some testimonies about the PRC. All I can say briefly is that take an example of Gladstone. Gladstone is our last PRC in the Free State, where we launched massive programs. Community food production, a 16-hectare community farm. We launched a community store. We launched co-ops. We launched piggery. We launched chicken co-op. We launched apiary, a making of bees. And this big program, we started it in Chogozi with only 5 beehives. They're going to grow into millions. And that community will never be poor again. We've done now the bees back into Mhlari, where when we started there were no bees. In Mhlari we've also now launched the rapid farming program. So it's different kind of things that we are doing in different communities. But fundamentally it's food production and food processing and creating the community market for their own produce. The same as this eggs from Mhlari. But the biggest area we're producing eggs at the moment is Matividi. We're doing almost 15,000 per month. Done by the community itself. So let's know we also did some roads. We built sport fields in the community. We built community parks. That's what we did in Gladstone. And we created basic things. A running track for the community, a soccer field, for soccer field as well as a netball field, 2 netball fields, and allowed girls to play. We've done this all over. In Tegezweni, where young boys came to us and said, why are you leaving us out of the program of soccer? We said, boys, if you are demanding it, you will have it. And the boys went to have their own tournament. This was the story of Tegezweni. The tension in the community because of crime. 6 o'clock, everyone was in their houses. Those boys, after they won the tournament, they started celebrating on the streets without fear. They broke the tension, the silence, the fear against criminals. Because we brought them back and allowed them to play. This is the spirit of the People's Red Caravan. It regenerates our communities. We do community theater, our young people. We do storytelling. We spent under the tree that President Nelson Mandela listens to stories when he was a young boy under the guardianship of King Joginta. It still exists in that tree. There's got a beautiful shape of the African man. Spiritual, if you like. Princess. No. So, this is the spirit of the People's Red Caravan. So, in Gladstone, one of the final interventions now we're seeking to deal with is to rebuild the community clinic. We found the community clinic dilapidated. The Department of Labor issued a statement for the final destruction of the institute, of the clinic. They don't issue an instruction to build a new clinic. They say, no, it's unsafe for people to be here. The nursing sister had to leave a nursing home so that it can be turned into the clinic. So we said, okay, this is a problem. Let's sort it out. We're working with the community to sort that out. Of course, they may leave us to build in the middle, then they bring a tender to build a new clinic. But we won't care, we'll build a clinic. Now we've got a site. The committee gave us a site and said we can build a clinic here. This is what we're doing. And we want our councillors to understand, therefore, this spirit of the People's Red Caravan. And we've done much in this regard. I won't go into a final detail. The main other issue, Comrade Madara will kill me, he said this thing is very important that we raise it, our TGS. Because it's in the launch of our manifesto. We have not decided much to contextualize the problems in our country. But we can say, after our contribution to this liberation struggle in South Africa today is counted as among the richest countries with mineral and natural resources. That is natural and mineral resources. Yet about 23 million people, representing 37.9% of the population, lives below the lower bound poverty line. Official figures are now showing a whopping 43% of the potential working population that is unemployed, afflicted by poverty, high inequality, and we are called the most unequal society in the world. Yet, only 10% of the population control 85 to 86% of our economy. The government is doing nothing about it. It goes to conference after conferences making promises that are not tangible to change the lives of our people. In other words, the program keeps us slaves of capital forever. We are therefore have said the National Democratic Revolution had stalled. We are trying to rejuvenate it because the program is the correct program. It is the leadership of this program that has betrayed the interests of our people and therefore has taken unilateral choices to impose neoliberalism in South Africa, to impose budget cuts in social services, in other ways, to cut health spending, education spending in social security and every other thing else in order to empower big capital, that is big business. We've had discussions about this question. For 28 years, after the 1996 launch of GEAR, we then began engagement against this unilateralism of decisions taken by government and imposed on the entire liberation movement. That this scenario is unacceptable. So this has not been achieved. That is why we have to stand on our own to represent the working class in this country. We believe therefore there must be a complete economic overhaul in our country. Now, we've got here the party manifesto. We have summarized it for you bit by bit. This is the essence, the summary of our manifesto. Simple, not difficult. The big one, it's explainable. The big one, it's explainable. It's on the website of the SACP. You'll get it. You'll also distribute to some few areas. But in the main, it is sufficient to use the simple version, the summarized version. It tells everything. It's only those who are interested in central issues. You go to the main manifesto. We explain every single thing there. The manifesto, therefore, deals with 6 priorities. These 6 priorities are as follows: reliable public service and preventative maintenance and prompt repairs of public infrastructure. Comrade Jacob Mamabula, our Provincial Secretary, is the MEC of the police here in the province of Gauteng. He's a police officer who was a member of the gang unit fighting against gangsterism, who was shot in Rehat Park. He's been buried today in Limpopo. So as the MEC of the province where he's working, he had to respond to this reality. He's one of the main champions of this program of saving public infrastructure. Some years ago, our party here in the province led a program to even go and close potholes. We launched a program in Sharpeville, for instance. A simple program, because the sewage in the township was just unacceptable and it caused so much potholes. We decided to go and deal with the sewage system as well as to deal with the potholes. Believe it or not, the sooner we launched that program, it was not an electioneering program. The sooner we launched that program, we had the Taxi Association in the bar coming to us and say, comrades, how can we help you? We thought we were running short of bitumen. They organized bitumen for us. We closed the potholes in the community. A simple thing that government could have done without tenders. We rolled out that program here in Gauteng, including my township of Togoza, in Rechertbach and other areas. But when our company did this, the government wanted to tenderize the process going forward. So therefore, comrades, our first priority is to make sure that we sustain, maintain public infrastructure and have reliable services to our people. The second one is the right to work, decent work and sustainable livelihoods. Every person who is willing to work must have access to decent, productive, and socially useful work. So you deserve work. We will give people work. We will create work in our communities, as Comrade John was saying. People are doubting this thing, but the People's Red Caravan has shown that we can create work and create self-reliance and build independent community economy. Therefore, the right to work will be guaranteed in our manifesto. Of course, comrades, we should say we do not want to create a brouhaha about this question because of the millions of people that are unemployed. But this example must be shared across the country, particularly from those who have done People's Red Caravan. The third question, priority, is on land, food, and social needs, that the land should never be used for profit purposes. It should be used to feed our people, to make sure that it meets human needs. And therefore, public land must be released for housing, for food production, for cooperatives, for community facilities, to fight hunger in our country. We have got abundant food in this country. There is no reason why people should sleep without eating. At the same time, we need to use our constitution, which in section 25 expressly provides the framework also for the return of the land. The government is not willing to test this question. And we have said as the Communist Party in the conference of the left, we are willing to work with organizations that can also explore the possibility in this regard on the land of a referendum if the question on section 25 is unsuccessful. Because otherwise it's going to take 300 years to return the land back in the hands of our people. We have no such luxury. The fourth one is about safe, caring, and healthy communities. In other words, we need here, therefore, comrades, that safety for our communities cannot be a slogan. In the warehouse, I can't do patrols. We did community patrol every single night. We finish our work 10 o'clock in the night or 11 o'clock in the night of the PRC. After 1 hour, 30 minutes, we get into the community patrols. We restore order in that particular community. By drugs, criminals, we dealt with that. I led as General Secretary, together with our provincial leadership, Comrade Shush and others, night patrols. We organized the community to protect themselves, and we kicked out criminals. We also kicked out community who were ravaged by drugs. Comrade Evelyn, she's one of our special social activists to identify these big difficult problems of social degeneration of our communities, drug abuse, rape, and so on. We're trying to release them from the rehab. We took them from Transman to rehab. We're trying to take her there to go and encourage safety in our community. It's non-negotiable. We have to talk to the general directly to deal with the police station that was refusing to activate arrest of criminals in the community. Finally, this happened. And we want to thank the station commander there, who was quite great. In fact, the masses told us that that station commander is good. They told us good people, good policemen, and bad ones. That South Africa almost fits the full characterization of becoming a mafia state. Because criminals have penetrated the nexus of state security or security services, as well as the legal services, the judicial, as well as the politicians. All of this is now being displayed. Apply the principle of deployment, accountability, and recall. So, if you become a runaway council, work with criminals to sabotage the communities, and yet you are a public representative, we will recall you as the Communist Party. It's as simple as that. Therefore, we are launching here a socialist program for South Africa with the 1994 democratic break, which has now been betrayed by those in control of political power. Because, and it's important to say this, and others, those who are here, and now, as they come and come here if they are here. Comrade Trevor, I've called you. Madam, where's my bag? Give it up and do a talk. They've been removed from their positions for standing with the SACP. Comrade Trevor Fowler has no position. He just resigned from being the election team of the ANC because he said, I mean, the Central Committee took a choice in this regard, but you can't divide an ANC him. The very system of the African National Congress remains important. So, we want to thank these comrades, all of them, for taking the punches on behalf of the SACP, for being at stake in our name, for articulating the positions of the SACP. We want to wish you well as you continue to do the work of the SACP in this coming election. We say thank you very much. The working class is dealing with the SACP. We will not be lost. Some of our secretaries have been threatened. We have said it clearly to our partner, the African National Congress. We have told them we are not leaving the alliance. But the alliance is not one organization. The alliance is all of us. So they've been threatening our comrades. We have said, write to us directly. Don't ostracize our comrades like this one. These are our comrades. And then before you see Magala, I want members of the Central Committee to come to the front. Members of the Central Committee, our provincial secretaries and chairpersons, to come to the front. I know, but not in the Central Committee. We can see you. Open pen. Now, comrades, Amanda! Now, comrades, these are members of our Central Committee and Politburo. These are comrades that are carrying out the mandate of our party without snitching. Our provincial secretaries and chairpersons, directly elected members, they are all here. I must tell you, this point, some of you may not know, because we've been trying to manage the tension in the alliance. There are comrades here. When we convened and extended Politburo, who are in government, who said, I want to live here if they want us to make a choice. I remain in the Communist Party. I can't leave the Communist Party and John, I can't contest, I can't go and campaign for it. It is the Politburo and the Central Committee that said, no one is leaving their positions that were acquired through the alliance. We've asked them to remain in their positions. I know that some of you do not understand this thing. Don't ostracize those comrades that we have told they must remain in their deployed positions. We are exploring every effort in this regard. Comrade Maju, come. We are exploring every effort in this regard because the current term of office that is coming to 2029 for provinces as well as national were alliance-led elections. So, the mic is gone. Mic. The question is gone. Oh, the question, they may bring another one.
Ask them for the line.
Okay, if you keep quiet, you can hear me, isn't it?
Yes.
I'm trying to raise the voice. The point is, we have said no one must be ostracized for remaining in their government positions. Those are not one organizational positions. They are collective alliance positions. We have done that in the name of the African National Congress. In the ANC, they are communists. We can therefore not accept an anti-communist agenda coming from inside the African National Congress. That we feel yes. So that's the basis that some of the comrades, what the newspapers like the Sunday World has written, absolute lies. We have freed those comrades to remain where they are because they were elected to those positions rightfully so. Some of the comrades here were threatened, were told to resign. They refused. They said, no, on what basis should I resign? The ANC has not communicated with us. If they give us that official communication in writing, we will take further steps. There's no doubt about it. But we are not going to accept continued harassment of our members because they belong to the African National Congress, which is our ally. The ANC has the right, and today is working with all right-wing forces, including the Freedom Front, Verkrante organizations, the DA, all other forces, and the government of national unity. But they tolerate them every single day. Now these ones are even leading them by the nose. They can't tolerate to work with their own comrades, the one that they share trenches of struggle with. This is unacceptable. So I wanted to read the last paragraph in front of all these members of the Central Committee. In front here you can see there's Comrade Tibet, Comrade Alex. In our history, we always have one Tibet. Comrade Tibet was one of the first black members of the Communist Party of South Africa when it was established initially by our European immigrants. So it came from there. So I'm glad Comrade Jerry, you are still here representing that tradition and the history, the lineage of the family. We want to say, comrades, our manifesto that says build people's power where we live for the right to work, land, food, roads, and safety. This is our contract. This is our program. This is our weapon. Take it and organize with it. Defend it. Vote for it. The working class must speak in its own name. The working class must fight in its own name. The working class must win in its own name and not be tricked by representatives of the ruling class chanting revolutionary slogans. The working class must win in its own name and not be tricked by representatives of the ruling class chanting revolutionary slogans. We say vote for the SACP on the 4th of November 2026 and forward to people's power, forward to socialism. Socialism is the future. Build it now.